Hey everybody, it's Monday morning. I just got out of the gym, stopped to fill up my coffee. Um, I like to drink coffee at the gym. I know it's probably a bad idea in terms of hydration. I drink water too, but I always have my coffee with me as well. Uh, anyway, so this morning when I was doing my rounds, I did some jumping rope. I did some like yoga stuff and stretching with the TRX cables, and then I also did several rounds of just like I'd call it shadow boxing, but instead of doing it in the mirror, a lot of times I'll do it like with a bag, and I'm basically just barely kicking it and barely touching it with my hands. I'm not wrapped up or anything, no gloves or anything like that. Just sort of working on technical stuff and trying to stay active and keep my heart rate up. And that was fun, but it's partly because I was pretty sore today. I was like my shoulders were really sore, and my hips were really sore. I'm really trying to get my hips loosened up better so I can kick higher and stuff like that. It's all part of the journey, everybody. But when I work out like this, where you're not like focusing on trying to just nail your techniques or nail your power or nail your footwork or whatever. When you're working out more like I was today, where it's really just about staying active, I find that it makes me think more in a way. I start imagining things more, and it reminded me that I've been wanting to talk about something for a little while now. I'm always interested in the connections between art making and martial arts. Creativity, in the arts and creativity in the martial arts. And one thing that they definitely have in common is creative visualization. All right, so it's obvious that a painter might sort of see a painting in his head before he paints it, or a film director is looking over his script, and in his mind's eye, he's seeing every camera angle, and he's thinking about the lighting and the dress the actress should wear and all that kind of stuff. So it's obvious creative visualization has a role in creative art making, right? But it also plays a big role in the martial arts, and there's more than one way. Like for instance, this morning, when I'm working out like that, when I'm working out anyway, but certainly when I'm working out in a context where I'm sort of free flowing and just trying to put combinations together and think about creative ways to approach the bag or whatever, but I'm not even trying to hit it hard or anything like that. Like I said, it sort of lends, that kind of activity sort of lends itself to something more than just thinking about technical, like move left foot, move left hand, you know what I mean? Which is sort of how you get into it when you start, when you're striking the bag hard and you're working on your techniques and stuff. There's not a whole lot of imagination happening. But when you're doing what I was doing today, there's a lot of imagination going on, and you're sort of imagining yourself in space. You're sort of seeing yourself do these things with the idea that you're attempting to do them correctly. One of the reasons why I like to make videos at the gym is because my primary athletic background was football, and if you played football, even in the middle school or high school level, that you're probably watching a lot of film. Like that's just a football culture thing. You watch movies, you watch the films of the opposing team, you watch your own films, you study yourself while the coach is pointing out things about the bigger picture. You're watching yourself and you're saying, got that tackle, missed that block, whatever. You learn a lot from watching film, and it's really helpful in the gym to, for me, I usually work out and then I'll make like a little quick video of what I'm doing, and I learn a lot from those videos, and I learn a lot from sharing those videos and having people comment about them and point things out to me. I always appreciate that. So if you see me doing something stupid in the gym, feel free to point it out, because I'll probably be grateful. Everybody's just trying to learn and get better, and I'm certainly feel overwhelmed at times, but there's a lot of creative visualization happening on that level. Like, the way that when you're learning a new skill in a sport, an athletic skill of some kind, part of the exercise is seeing yourself do it correctly in your head, and then trying to emulate that, you know, with your body. And, you know, like I say, when you watch yourself on video, a lot of times it's not what you think it is. And to me, that is the power of creative visualization in this realm, is that, you know, I look like fucking, you know, Floyd Mayweather in my head, you know, then you see the video and it's just like, you know, it's never quite as clean and sweet as you'd like to think it would be. But it's fun. It's fun to see yourself in that light, and to attempt to be, you know, to really get those skills together and really get those combos tight, you know what I mean? And part of the way you do that is by imagining yourself into that space. And then again, like I say, trying to emulate it in space with your body, you know, as you've visualized it in your head. Another, you know, kind of subtly different way that I think you'll hear about fighters. You know, Sean O'Malley was talking about this earlier this week. You know, he had a great win on Saturday night, by the way. Very cool fight, hurt his foot, a very dramatic ending. But basically, up until the third round, when O'Malley hurt his foot off of a head kick, he threw like a question mark kick, and Andre Sukumta sort of blocked it. But as I remember, it sort of caught him on the elbow when he came up to block the kick. And I just heard today that O'Malley's foot's not actually broken. Everybody thought his foot was broken, but it's not. He's just really skinny. It looked like his foot was broken because he's so skinny and floppy, right? But evidently his foot actually didn't get broken. It could have gotten severely, you know, soft tissue injury or something like that. I don't actually know the prognosis at this point. But Sean O'Malley talked about this exact thing. He talked about how, you know, how he visualizes himself, you know, in the fight, before the fight. He visualizes the crowd. He visualizes all stuff. McGregor, of course, has talked about all this stuff. McGregor claims to have fucking ESP, you know, because of his capacity for visualization. But this is not an uncommon thing with fighters, and it's certainly not an uncommon thing with athletes. You know, I think it was Phil Jackson, the old coach for the Chicago Bulls, back in the heyday of Michael Jordan. Those guys were all about like creative visualization, you know, and I know like with Olympic athletes and stuff for a long time now, they've completely believed in the power of that. You know, it's a little bit of a weird secret in a strange way, you know, that everyone isn't using those technologies, you know, just in their everyday life, just to be a more patient mom and dad or something, you know what I mean? Let alone a world-class athlete. But there's 100%, you know, it's just as important as lifting weights or doing your road work or whatever it might be. You know, training your mind is huge. I mean, how many times have you seen in a fight where a fighter, you know, it's really their mind is what's giving out, you know what I mean? They're mentally cracking, you know, they're scared or they're hurt and they can't push through it mentally, where other fighters, they just push right through it mentally, you know, and those guys are, you know, there's a level there, you know, and you can train it, you know, and when you're talking about just the idea of you know, envisioning yourself, you know, playing against your opponent, fighting against your opponent, whatever it might be, you know, and visualize all the context too, like all that, you know, you know, you always hear about fighters who, you know, kind of they get to the big fucking fight with the big pay-per-view and all the lights and the girls and everything, and the next thing you know, they're just like overwhelmed, you know what I mean? Suddenly the fight, they can't even think about the fight because there's so much crazy stuff going on around them and they're in the middle of it all, you know. But to be able to sort of walk right through all that and do what you have to do in the octagon or the ring or, you know, on the mat, whatever it is that you're doing, I think, you know, the idea is that one way to do that is to sort of like get used to it before you get there. You know, don't let it catch you by surprise. And you do that by thinking about it. You do that by envisioning it. You do that by sort of putting yourself in a place where you can walk through all of that, you know. And so that's another way that creative visualization is an important part of martial arts and in just, you know, in general performance, you know, and performance of any kind, frankly, you know, but certainly athletic performance, and certainly, you know, the kind of you know, spectacle that you'll have at a you know, a main event fight card in Las Vegas or something like that. Not so much what I'm doing, not so much you know, Tuesday night sparring at the UFC gym in Hendersonville. that's got a certain amount of anxiety, but it's not quite the same thing. Then the one other thing I was thinking about when I was working out, well, I should have been probably thinking more about why I was having so much trouble landing my spinning back fist. If you're not throwing spinning back fists, you're not doing it right, everybody. But one other thing I thought of about creative visualization is the way that, you know, we see in fights so often that, you know, a big part of it beyond just the performance of the athletes or the, you know, the conditioning of the athletes or whatever, the milieu, you know, about the fight, you know, life, glamour, and all that stuff. Even beyond that, you know, I've seen lots of fights, especially in the UFC, because mixed martial arts is such a complicated sport compared to boxing. Boxing is incredibly sophisticated, and I'd never say a bad word about boxing. But there's a complication to a sport like MMA where there's like so many techniques and weapons, you know, available to these guys. And so it's a different game, and you know, game plan strategizing seems to be such an important part of you know, winning MMA teams. We think of MMA as an individual sport, and ultimately, of course, it is. Nobody can fight your fight for you, but you know, the fighters that we see consistently doing well and you know, improving all the time and evolving all the time, you know, those guys, it's really important, you know, it's really important to think, well, who's this guy's coach? Who's teaching this guy how to strike like this? You know, Sean O'Malley's at the MMA Lab, which is a gym based in Arizona. I want to say the original one is in Phoenix, and there's also one in Scottsdale. I was talking about this in one of my videos earlier, but I'm hoping, I've got family that live in Sedona, Arizona, which is very close to the Scottsdale gym. And the next time I go there, I'm going to make some kind of effort, you know, to get down there and maybe interview people for the podcast or something, or at the very least just go down there and spend a day, you know, just training there, because I'd like to just check out that facility, and it'd be fun to have a place to go. When I'm out in Sedona, there's no MMA gyms nearby there. I think there's some jiu-jitsu stuff happening, but jiu-jitsu is not, I'm not doing a whole lot of jiu-jitsu right now, and jiu-jitsu is weird because I'd like to just kind of dabble in it a bunch, but it's kind of hard to just dabble in it, you know what I mean, because you're just the guy coming to class again who doesn't know anything, and it's kind of a pain in the ass for everybody else if you're not up to speed, because now who wants to fucking jujitsu with you? You know, you're a pile of meat that's going to get twisted in a knot. It's ridiculous. Your first jujitsu class is a very interesting experience. You pretty much are just it's so confusing. It's totally confusing, and you're like paralyzed with confusion, and then somebody's like breaking your arm. So yeah, it's fun. But I really think, you know, when it comes to creative visualization, that you know, game planning is a huge part of it. You know, so now you've got the whole team. You've got the coach, you've got the fighter, you've got, you know, anybody else who's involved with your gym and your sparring partners and all that stuff. And you have all these people, you know, now sort of pooling their information and say, well, we've got this, you know, tape of this guy, we've got this, we've got that. And then you sort of, you know, take all the evidence you can gather and then sort of look into the future and say, okay, here's where they are, here's where we are, here's the move we think they're going to make, so we're going to go like this. You know, we're going to train to do this, you know. And you know, there's also fighters out there who claim that they don't sort of tailor their camps to a specific fighter. You know what I mean? They worry about themselves because of a lot of reasons. Because a lot of times the fighter will drop out and they'll fight somebody else. Now you're completely unprepared for that person. A lot of times because coaches just feel like, you know, the important thing is making you a better martial artist. You know what I mean? If we do that every time, then that's the better plan. You know, that's the better way to spend this time, is to focus in that way. But certainly there's absolutely, look at Stipe Miocic's last fight with Francis Ngannou. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, first of all, no surprise to me, by the way. I was telling everybody on Twitter, you're going to have to apologize to the champion, sir, when this fight is over, because you're going to have a lot to come up, you're going to have a lot to answer for when Francis Ngannou loses this fight. And of course he did. But it was very much with Stipe. It was very much not only just a display of his great skills as a you know, the best heavyweight fighter of all time, perhaps. Certainly a huge fucking favorite of mine. I love that guy. But you know, so not only did he sort of remind the fools that, you know, the king is the king, but he also, you know, it was really the execution, the fucking pro-ass execution of a great fucking game plan. You know, how to avoid getting run over by this truck, and then how to drag that fucking truck to the ground. And I mean, he dominated this guy who so many people thought, oh shit, too bad for Stipe, you know what I mean? And then he fucking dominated it. So that was very much, you know, the execution of a game plan, and you know, I think a smart one. And I think a lot of us who were following Ngannou you know, looked at those same things and would have said, hey, look, here's what you do, you know, here's the way you can do this, you know, here's where the weaknesses are, you know. Probably if you take this big motherfucker down, you know, and make him stand up and get down and stand up and get down and stand up and drag you off the floor for a little while, you know, he is not going to be the same fighter, you know. And that was it, you know. But that took, you know, getting those insights and then, you know, looking into it, and then also too preparing Stipe to fight that way and to be able to do that. I mean, Stipe is not a little man; he's a big ass dude. You know, it's not easy to be a big ass dude like that and wrestle like that. You know, so you know, that's another way that you know, creative visualization comes into play. You know, so it comes into play as something that you use to help with your technical abilities. You know, to sort of see yourself in your mind's eye when you're working, when you're learning new techniques, you know, and to try to emulate that in your head. It also helps with fighters and with athletes in general when they're, you know, sort of preparing themselves mentally for the experience of performing, you know, on schedule. You know, that's the important part. Lots of these guys are fucking amazing athletes, and you know, they could, you know, potentially beat anybody in their division, but, you know, on a given night, this guy is like a fucking wizard, you know, and then on another night, this guy's, you know, suddenly a ham and egger, you know what I mean? So it's you know, optimizing that capacity for performance so that you're peaking and perfect, you know, at the moment you need to be. Part of that is using creative visualization to you know, to ready yourself and to prepare yourself so that you're not caught off guard. You're not thrown off, you know, when you know, when media week blitzes you. You're ready for it. You've already done this. You've sat through a day of interviews in your brain already. You know your story. You know how to tell it. You're good to go. You're on automatic fucking pilot because you're getting ready for a fight. You know, because you've done all that homework mentally and create with this creative visualization. And then the third thing being, you know, that when you're, you know, preparing to fight an opponent, it could be just as simple as you know, even at the, you know, sparring at your gym or something, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, we're gonna switch up partners. Oh shit, I'm gonna go against him. Okay, really quick, let me think about this. Oh right, yeah, he's the lefty. You know, I'm going to try to circle out and he's going to try to catch me with the right hook, da-da-da-da-da, you know what I mean? Even in that kind of a circumstance and even in that kind of casual situation, just taking a second to sort of mentally sort of run through what you're about to experience can you know, can really help you for a second. You go, oh yeah, right, yeah, this is how this is going to go. I know how he punches. I know how he likes to kick. He's going to try to do that Superman punch because he always does that. You know, so you know, even that, you know, at the level that I am or that you might be just as somebody training, it can be a very helpful thing, you know, just to always have that capacity in your back pocket. And it's part of what makes training fun. You know, it's a great exercise for your mind, and you know, I think it's part of it's a big part of, you know, evolving and learning more skills and becoming better at this thing. And for me, that's what's important about it. I can't imagine going to the gym and just like exercising. Like, I'm going to go lift weights. I'm going to go just run on a treadmill again, you know, or just go for a run again. Maybe outside in nature, I would find it more interesting. But for me, you know, it's got to be something like this where I'm learning stuff, because that's what really motivates me and gets me interested. And then the side effect is you're getting, you know, much healthier, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, that's all for today. So if anybody, if you guys have other ideas about how creativity comes into play with your training, or if you think some of this is like, you know, off the mark or anything like that, please leave a reply, and let's have a little conversation about creativity and fighting. This is a great way to start the week for me, and I hope you guys are going to have a great week.